Welcome to The It Factor. We're Jemmy and Nye, exploring a new blog post by Mr. Len Kaplan, CEO of CDML and MSP in Queens.NY, offering network management, VoIP and UCAS, cybersecurity.compliance.IaaS, cloud and Microsoft 365 and Azure. If you're a small business owner or manage IT for a growing organization, this deep dive is for you. Stay tuned.
So, you're a small business owner in New York, just trying to keep everything running, and then suddenly you've got a data breach. You've got 30 days to notify everyone affected. That's the new law in New York.
30 days.
Yeah.
That's really intense, especially for a small business that might not have a dedicated IT team.
Exactly. It gets even more complicated because New York expanded their definition of private information as of March 2025.
Oh.
This includes medical and health insurance details. So even if you're not a healthcare provider,
Yeah.
if you've got employee health data, this applies to you.
So it's not just names and addresses anymore.
Yeah. Oh, no. And it gets even worse. You're not just notifying individuals anymore. You have to report breaches to multiple state agencies, including the NY Department of Financial Services, or NYDFS. More paperwork, more complexity.
It sounds like a bureaucratic nightmare. I'm guessing there's a reason for all of this.
Yeah. These updates are designed to protect consumers and hold businesses accountable.
Makes sense. Data breaches are always in the headlines these days. So what happens if a small business owner just ignores all this? What are the consequences?
Well, ignoring the law is never a good idea. We're talking hefty fines, increased scrutiny from regulators, damage to your reputation. Think about it. Would you do business with a company that didn't take your data security seriously?
Definitely not. Trust is everything, especially for a small business. So how can our listeners make sure they're not caught off guard?
That's where the expertise of folks like Mr. Kaplan, the CEO of CDML, comes in. He runs a managed service provider, or MSP. It's like an outsourced IT department. He emphasizes that being proactive is far cheaper and less disruptive than dealing with a breach after it happens.
So it's like preventative health care for your business data.
Exactly.
So that's where a company like CDML can come in.
Yes, especially for smaller businesses. They offer a range of services, from risk assessments and vulnerability scans to compliance and reporting assistance.
So it's like having a team of cybersecurity experts in your corner.
Yeah. They can even help with incident response planning.
That's a huge relief to know you have a plan in place. But a lot of small businesses might think, this all sounds expensive. Can I really afford this?
Yeah. It's a fair question. But imagine this. A small business is hit with a $50,000 fine for a preventable data breach that could have been avoided with a $5,000 investment.
Yeah.
Suddenly, cybersecurity doesn't seem so expensive.
Ouch. That puts things into perspective. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly.
So cybersecurity is non-negotiable, especially with these new laws in New York. But let's talk more about this expanded definition of private information, especially medical and health insurance data. What are the implications here?
Think about all the data you might have on your employees. Even something as simple as contact information for emergency contacts. That could include health insurance details. Imagine that information is compromised.
Scary thought. So what can small business owners do to protect themselves and make sure they're in compliance? It all sounds pretty overwhelming.
Don't worry. It's not as daunting as it seems. First, take stock of what data you have. Where is it stored? Who has access to it? Then, make sure you have strong security measures in place, like encryption and multi-factor authentication.
No, you have, and lock it down tight.
Exactly. And this is another area where an MSP like CDML can be a valuable partner. They can help you assess your current security posture, identify any gaps, and implement the right safeguards.
So they're not just about technology, they're about helping you understand the law.
Absolutely.
Okay. So we've covered the basics of these new laws. Now let's move on to something a lot of people might not even realize is a vulnerability.
I mean, the human element.
Exactly. Even with all the best technology in place, one wrong click from an employee can open the door to a major security breach.
You're absolutely right. And this is an area where a lot of businesses fall short. They focus on the technology, but neglect the human factor.
So how do we fix that? What can small business owners do to make sure their employees aren't accidentally putting their data at risk?
Employee training is crucial. You need to make sure your team understands the importance of strong passwords, how to spot phishing scams, and what to do if they suspect a security incident.
So it's about empowering employees to be part of the solution.
Exactly. You want to create a culture of security awareness.
That makes sense. But let's be realistic. Security training can sometimes feel like a chore. How can businesses make it more engaging and effective?
One way is to use real-world examples and scenarios. Instead of just talking about abstract threats, Show them how these threats could actually play out.
So instead of a boring lecture, make it interactive. Maybe use quizzes or games.
You got it. And make it ongoing, not just a one-time event.
That's where a company like CDML could be incredibly helpful.
Right.
Right.
Absolutely.
So we've covered the importance of employee training, but I think there's another aspect to this human element that's worth discussing.
You mean the psychology of cybersecurity?
Exactly. We're all busy. We're all trying to get things done quickly.
Yeah.
And sometimes we let our guard down. What are some of the common traps that hackers use?
Well, one of the most common tactics is phishing, sending emails or text messages that appear to be from a legitimate source. They might try to trick you into clicking on a malicious link or giving away your login credentials.
So they're playing on our trust.
Exactly. They might create a sense of urgency, like saying your account has been compromised.
So it's about being aware of those psychological triggers and taking a moment to think before you click.
That's right. And it's about educating your employees to be skeptical.
So it's about being cautious
Right.
and taking those extra steps to protect yourself and your business. We've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the new cybersecurity landscape in New York, the importance of preventative measures, and the often overlooked human element.
But there's still so much more to uncover. In the next part, we'll dive into some specific strategies and tools that small businesses can use to strengthen their cybersecurity.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the IT Factor.
So before we left off, we were talking about the human element of cybersecurity and how important it is to train employees to be vigilant.
It's like having a high-tech security system,
Right.
but leaving your front door wide open.
Exactly. So let's talk about some specific strategies small businesses can use.
One of the most effective strategies is to implement multi-factor authentication, or MFA, for all your accounts.
So instead of just a password, you need another piece of information to verify your identity.
Exactly. It could be a code sent to your phone, a fingerprint scan, or even facial recognition.
That makes a lot of sense.
And it's not just for your employees' accounts. You should also implement MFA for any online services or applications that your business uses.
So it's about protecting all those sensitive access points.
Absolutely. Another crucial strategy is to keep all your software up to date.
Ooh, those software updates.
I know. They can be annoying, but they're essential for your security.
Why is that?
Because software updates often include security patches that fix known vulnerabilities.
So if you don't update your software, you're leaving yourself open to attacks.
Exactly. Hackers are constantly looking for ways to exploit weaknesses in software.
That's a great analogy, but let's be realistic. A lot of small businesses might not have the time to manage all these updates.
That's where an MSP like CDML can be really helpful. They can handle all your software updates for you.
So it's like having an automated security guard.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about multi-factor authentication and software updates. What other practical steps can small businesses take?
Another important step is to implement strong password policies. This might seem basic, but you'd be surprised how many businesses still use weak passwords.
So what does a strong password look like?
It should be at least 12 characters long, with a mix of upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols.
So no more password 123.
Definitely not. And avoid using the same password for multiple accounts.
That's a great point.
And consider using a password manager to help you create and store strong passwords.
So it's like having a digital vault for all your passwords.
Precisely.
You mentioned CDML could handle software updates. Do they help with passwords too?
Absolutely. They
Yeah.
can also help with things like data encryption.
So it's like putting your sensitive information in a secret code.
Exactly.
This is all great information, but it's starting to sound like you need a degree in computer science to handle all this.
That's why working with an MSP like CDML can be so valuable. They have the expertise to manage all these technical details for you.
That's like having a dedicated cybersecurity team.
Precisely.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to choose an MSP that you trust.
Speaking of unique challenges, let's talk about healthcare providers.
This is a critical area. Healthcare providers handle some of the most sensitive information imaginable.
And the consequences of a breach could be devastating.
Absolutely. So healthcare providers need to be extra vigilant.
So what are some specific steps they can take?
In addition to the measures we've already discussed, like strong passwords, MFA, and data encryption, They should also ensure they're using IP-compliant communication platforms.
IPA, that's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act.
Exactly. They should also implement regular security audits and vulnerability scans.
So it's not just about setting it and forgetting it.
Exactly.
So it goes back to that human element again.
Absolutely. And it's about having a plan in place for what to do if a breach does occur, an incident response plan.
That's like having a fire drill for your data.
Exactly.
So it's about being prepared for the worst. So whether you're a small business owner, a healthcare provider, or any other organization, the message is clear. Cybersecurity is no longer optional.
And it's not as daunting as it might seem.
Well said.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll wrap up with some key takeaways and some inspiring advice.
Stay tuned. Welcome back to the It Factor.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into cybersecurity.
We talked about the new laws, the risks, the importance of having a plan.
And we explored how an MSP like CDML can help businesses.
But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with some takeaways. What are 3 things they can do right now to improve their cybersecurity?
First, take stock of your current practices. Are you following basic security hygiene? Do you have strong passwords? Are you keeping your software up to date? Is multi-factor authentication enabled?
It's easy to overlook those things.
Exactly. Second, think about your data. What kind of information do you store? Where is it stored? Who has access? Once you understand your data, you can protect it. And finally, don't wait for a breach to happen. Reach out to a provider like CDML for a risk assessment.
So be proactive, understand your data, and get expert help.
Absolutely. And remember, cybersecurity is not a destination. It's a journey.
It's like anything else in business.
Well said. And remember, investing in cybersecurity is not just about avoiding fines. It's about protecting your business, your employees, your customers, your reputation.
It's about peace of mind.
Exactly.
Well, that's about all the time we have for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. We hope this has given you what you need to protect your business.
And remember, if you're feeling overwhelmed, reach out to a cybersecurity provider like CDML. They're there to help.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
And stay secure.